On our NFL cover story this week, we're going to take a look at a good old country boy from Gulfport, Mississippi, who made good in the NFL. They call him the Snake, Ken Stabler. Our NFL record book is titled The Grand Old Men, and we're going to take a look at some of the old aging quarterbacks who performed miracles in the NFL, even though they were applying for Social Security. And the granddaddy of them all, George Blanda, will be joining us on the show this week. And finally, on our Super Poll to the Super Bowl, we're going to give you the results of last week's question: should drug testing be mandatory in the NFL? Once again, your response was great, and I'm sure you're not going to be surprised at the results. Nick, I know this time of year you're generally looking to see who's won and who's lost, hoping that everybody loses in the NFL so your record of being on a perfect team will stay intact. But San Francisco and Miami still have a shot at your record.
Lenny, the last time the Dolphins were 5-0 was in 1972, and that's when our ball club went 17-0, the only time in the NFL that anybody had a perfect record. But knowing Don Shula the way I do, I'm sure he feels that this ball club can go undefeated again. Personally, I have mixed emotions about that.
Sure. That's why I saw you flashing your Super Bowl ring and telling everybody, look at us, we were perfect, we were perfect. And I'm sure you wouldn't mind Miami losing at least one game like the Raiders did last Sunday.
You know, talking about the Raiders, I was coming over in a cab, and of course, cab drivers tend to be opinionated, and he didn't mince any words. He said Jim Plunkett stinks, that quarterback for the Raiders. I said, here we go again. Here's a guy who's led the Raiders to 2 Super Bowl championships, and he has to prove himself all over again.
Well, I guess he can't get any respect, but, you know, there's a team that we really didn't give a whole lot of respect to prior to the season, the Indianapolis Colts. But last Sunday, against the winless and struggling Buffalo Bills, the Indianapolis Colts took another step toward respectability.
Perhaps practical jokes were in order Sunday as Mike Pagel and his Colts loosened up for a battle against a leaking ship with an untested captain. The winless Bills, minus quarterback Joe Ferguson, seemed a sure bet to sink quickly in the Hoosier Dome. Free agent quarterback Joe Dufek filled in admirably, however, running for a score and tossing a touchdown to Preston Denard for a 17-10 third-quarter lead. Then Indianapolis stopped joking, and Randy McMillan, number 32, started juking. McMillan rushed for 114 yards and a pair of second-half touchdowns as the cold ground game and an aroused defense led by safety Mark Kafensis, number 29, did indeed sink the Bills, 31-17. For the 5th straight time this season, Buffalo slowly capsized out of sight towards Davy Jones' locker, and now they rest alone at the bottom of the AFC East. For Indianapolis, theirs was a happy locker room, full of men that had won their first regular season game beneath their new dome. Mark Twain once wrote, "When you're mad, count to 4. When you're real mad, swear." Viking defensive coordinator Floyd Reese was pretty mad Sunday and politely requested his troops to kindly proceed onto the playing surface, line up with purpose, and deter the progress of the visiting Seahawks. Soon it became time for him to once again count to 4. A Dave Craig to Steve Largent touchdown pass helped Seattle to a 13-12 lead, and then Eric Lane, number 37, broke the game open with a 40-yard score with just over a minute remaining. Rumor has it that on his way by the Viking bench, he heard a man rather beside himself screaming from 1 to 10. Seahawks 20, Vikings 12. Straight and simple, football fans, this here is your basic moonwalking parrot. Why, you ask? Simple. Tampa Bay's mascot, that lonesome little Buccaneer fella, needed a parrot to sit on his shoulder. Every pirate has one. Unfortunately for Packer quarterback Lynn Dickey, he found himself with 250 pounds of Leroy Selman sitting on his shoulder. Tampa's big gun, however, was James Wilder, who shouldered the load by rushing for 172 yards on a record-tying 43 carries. Wilder's run made it 7-0 Bucks, but when guard Tim Huffman and tackle Carl Swanky planted their shoulders into a couple of Buck defenders, Jesse Clark tied it at 7. 7-all became 20-all until noseman David Logan, number 76, barreled into the end zone with his 4th career touchdown. A truly uncanny feat for a nose guard. Uncanny indeed would be the correct word to describe what happened with only 8 seconds left and the Bucks up by 7. James Lofton caught it, and Gary Ellis took it in, and the Packers had forced an overtime period, and this game fell squarely on the shoulders of an unlikely hero named Obed Ariri. I didn't think about anything before the last kick, said Ariri, a Nigerian who played for Clemson. I felt really good when I hit it, and I knew it was good. It certainly was, as the Bucks and their new moonwalking parrot were winners, 30-27.
James Wilder is the most underrated running back in the National Football League. And right now he ranks 3rd in rushing behind the great superstar Walter Payton, who is catching Jim Brown, and the new kid on the block from the Atlanta Falcons, Gerald Riggs. But Len, when you play in Tampa and your coach gets more ink than the players, then it's tough to get known.
Well, most of the ink has been bad the last couple of years, but I'll guarantee you the defenses that have to guard against James Wilder, they know him all too well. As a matter of fact, Lawrence Taylor, the outstanding linebacker for the New York Giants, was quoted as saying that he felt that Wilder was the best back that he's ever played against. Now, if they don't know James Wilder now, after that statement, they're certainly going to know him then.
You know, a couple unknowns are making coaches scramble every week in preparation for them. Their quarterback, Tony Eason of the New England Patriots, and Pat Ryan of the New York Jets. Yeah, I said Pat Ryan of the Jets. If it wasn't for his performance on Sunday, the Jets would have been blown out of that game. As for Tony Eason, he displayed the poise and confidence of a real winner. And this has a tendency to rub off on the entire team.
At one time, the job of a young NFL quarterback was to warm the bench and study his craft from the sidelines. But times are changing, and in just his 2nd year, Patriot quarterback Tony Eason has been promoted from part-time backup to full-time starter. Last Sunday against the New York Jets, Eason made his 2nd start since taking over for Steve Grogan. And he continued his on-the-job training by tossing the first of his 3 touchdown passes, this one to tight end Lynn Dawson, number 87. Dawson's score tied the game at 7-all in the first period as New England had trouble pulling away from New York. For under Pat Ryan, another former backup, now fully employed as a number 1 quarterback, the Jet offense has been soaring above all expectations. Ryan was on target 20 out of 31 times, throwing for 297 yards and 2 touchdowns. But these numbers paled against the shining performance of the young Patriot quarterback, who lit up the Meadowlands skies for 354 yards. This 3rd quarter touchdown bomb to number 86, Stanley Morgan, was the difference as the Patriots downed the Jets 28-21. While Tony Eason was solidifying his new starting position, the Washington Redskins were up to some of their old tricks. A perfectly executed flea flicker from John Riggins to Joe Theismann to Art Monk was the only touchdown the Redskins needed as they blanked Philadelphia 20-0. While Washington was making easy work of the Eagles, Detroit's Billy Sims went about his chores against the San Diego Chargers like it was another routine day at the office. Although not ruled a touchdown, this 81-yard run was the longest of Sims' career, and it helped breathe air into the lifeless Lions, who had been trailing 24-7 at the half. Detroit cut that deficit down to 3 midway into the third quarter when Lion quarterback Gary Danielson made a timely block on a reverse that gave wide receiver Jeff Chadwick clear sailing into the end zone. With less than 5 minutes remaining, Detroit was again on the Charger doorstep and appeared ready for another comeback win. But a blitzing Billy Ray Smith managed to get a grip on Danielson's jersey. Smith held on, as did San Diego, 27-24. After being blanked by the Broncos, the Kansas City Chiefs were hoping to get back into the business of scoring points. But for much of their game against Cleveland, their offense remained pinned to the ground. The Chiefs' only touchdown came in the fourth quarter when quarterback Todd Blackledge hit Billy Jackson, number 43, on a 9-yard touchdown pass. Surprisingly, this was all the scoring Kansas City needed, as their defense pounded Cleveland's immobile quarterback Paul McDonald for 11 sacks. For all his on-the-job education, McDonald continues to play like a man who still needs more schooling. Even when number 16 had the protection, his passes were hardly thrown in what you would call textbook fashion. In addition to their 11 sacks, the Chiefs intercepted McDonald 4 times as they edged Cleveland by a score of 10-6. As for Paul McDonald, well, he had better learn quickly what it takes to occupy a full-time job in the NFL. If he doesn't, he might soon be heading back to the sidelines, where he'll have to study his craft from the bench.
I was in Kansas City and I broadcast the Chiefs-Browns game, and it was my observation that McDonald was tentative and confused, which leads to inefficiency, and it's certainly reflected in his stats. McDonald is the worst-rated passer in the NFL, outdistancing my old friend, veteran quarterback Lynn Dickey of the Packers, and also Todd Blackledge of the Chiefs. Nick, the Browns were hoping that McDonald was going to be the answer, but the way he has been performing, he certainly is anything but.
Lynn, I agree. McDonald looks awful. But I'm going to come to his defense because his offensive line hasn't shown up all year long. In 5 games, McDonald has been sacked 28 times, and that leads the league. No, maybe what they ought to do to protect him is put him in a shark's cage.
I don't know about sharks. I think a moat with alligators swimming around in it. But I know this, you cannot complete passes when you're on your back. Quarterbacks, all quarterbacks, have to have time to throw the football.
You know, the way the Browns are performing so poorly offensively, to me it shows that they have a lack of confidence in their quarterback. The San Francisco 49ers, on the other hand, have tremendous confidence in their quarterback, Joe Montana. And that offensive line kills themselves to protect him.
Just 3 teams entered the season's 5th week with unblemished records: the Raiders, Dolphins, and the 49ers. Last Sunday, San Francisco went one-on-one with divisional rival Atlanta, who came in as the highest-scoring team in the NFC. By the end of the day, they have lost that distinction. One too many tips tapped out the Falcons, as the 49ers defense turned in their 2nd straight game without allowing a touchdown. After a week's absence, San Francisco quarterback Joe Montana was back with a flak jacket to help ease the soreness in his bruised ribs. With touchdown passes to tight end Russ Francis and to wide receiver Mike Wilson, Montana showed no ill effects from his brief layoff. Wilson's touchdown earned the 49ers a 14-3 lead with under 2 minutes to play before San Francisco elected to take a safety and ensure their 5th win of the year. But whoever said a safety was safe? Punter Max Runniger lost the battle, but the 49ers won the war 14-5. Max Runniger took the kind of punishment the LA Raiders like to dish out. And there's at least one Raider fan in the Mile High City who looks like he got run over by the world champions. In the first half against the Denver Broncos, the bone-crunching Raiders looked as if they would take another victim. Marcus Allen's 30-yard run set up the first touchdown of the game. A 19-yard scoring pass from Jim Plunkett to tight end Todd Christensen, number 46. The Raiders led 7-6 at intermission, but the second half belonged to linebacker Tom Jackson and the Denver defense. Jackson, number 57, keyed a Bronco defense that allowed the Raiders just 22 yards on the ground in the final 30 minutes of play. The Raiders' aura of invincibility was shattered. After Gerald Quillhite scored the deciding touchdown, the Broncos added a final lick for good measure as Los Angeles lost their first of the year, 16-13. The St. Louis Cardinals were not so fortunate in their effort to untrack the undefeated Miami Dolphins. Cardinals fell behind early and struggled to catch up behind quarterback Neil Lomax, who passed for over 300 yards. That included a 22-yard touchdown pass to tight end Doug Marsh, number 80. Subbing for O.J. Anderson, Stump Mitchell ran for over 100 yards, and Earl Farrell, number 31, scored his first touchdown of the year. But it was tough to play catch-up once the Dolphins got a leg up behind the arm of quarterback Dan Marino. Marino threw for a club record 429 yards, but it was slippery receivers like Mark Duper, number 85, who helped him set that record with plenty of yardage after the catch. And Mark Clayton, number 83, combined for over 300 receiving yards, while Tony Nathan, number 22, caught Dan Marino's 15th touchdown pass of the season to clinch the 36-28 Miami win. And now there are two. Only the Dolphins and the 49ers remain undefeated. 5 down, 11 to go.
With Dan Marino, the best quarterback in the NFL, that certainly is a possibility. But I'm sure that Marino would be the first to admit that he has had an awful lot of help. Nick, what a year Duper's having. I guess that's why they call him Super Duper, because he is leading the AFC in every receiving category. But as a quarterback, the most important statistic is this. The offensive line of the Dolphins have allowed their quarterback to be sacked just once.
You know, this is not a typical Don Shula football team, which is run, ball control, blood and guts. What he has done is he's adapted his offensive system to the personnel rather than the personnel to the offensive system. This is a key to a great coach, Len.
Well, I guess maybe we should make you put on your cheerleading outfit every time you talk about the Dolphins, but I have to admit you are right about Don Shula. He is the best. There's another coach that's adapting his system around his personnel, and that is Rams coach John Robinson. Robinson has used ball control with Eric Dickerson running A strong defense, the outstanding play of his special teams. Yes, I said the special teams, despite what you're about to see on the opening kickoff.
Last Sunday, the New York Giants took a 3-1 record along with their soaring confidence on the road to Los Angeles for a Week 5 game against the Rams. Whether or not it was the bright California sun that kept A.J. Jones, number 24, from catching the opening kickoff, no one knows. But when he failed to fall on the live football, it was obvious the hot sun had succeeded in frying his brain. Phil McConkey recovered the ball in the end zone for a touchdown. However, New York's failure to make the extra point proved to be an omen of what was in store for the Giants' kicking game. Number 80, Henry Ellard, gave Jones a lesson on how to field a kick and then what to do with it once it's firmly in your grasp. Ellard's 83-yard return put the Rams on top, 14-6. For Giant punter Dave Jennings, one of the best in the league, the touchdown was embarrassing. Unfortunately for Jennings, embarrassment eventually was to take a back seat to total humiliation. Number 37, Ivory Sully, blocked a punt that went out of the end zone for a safety. Safeties are a relatively rare occurrence in an NFL game. But in this case, the Rams were just getting started. Minutes after a sack in the end zone gave Los Angeles its second two-point play. The Giants, in another punting situation, became confused by the Rams' defensive movement and once again failed to protect Jennings. The Giants recovered the loose ball, but Los Angeles became the first team to record 3 safeties in a single game. While the Ram defense was racking up two-pointers like the LA Lakers, the offense was scoring in a more conventional manner. Since the ground cannot cause a fumble, Henry Ellard's fine effort was ruled a completion and set up an easy touchdown pass from Jeff Kemp to David Hill. With a 33-12 win over the Giants, Los Angeles improved its record to 3-2. While the Rams' methods of scoring last Sunday might have been a bit irregular, the Bears' means were, as usual, quite predictable. Against the Cowboys, Walter Payton ran for 155 yards and 1 touchdown. However, while Payton continued to ascend to a level far above his competition, the Bears were slowly slipping downward towards the familiar hollows of mediocrity. Dallas dropped Chicago to 3-2 with a 23-14 win, which included this 68-yard touchdown by Tony Dorsett. Thanks to a 4-1 record, Dallas is once again in a familiar position, sole possession of first place in the NFC East. With new materials, Coach Tom Landry has once again tailored the Cowboys into a winner. Unlike the 2-2 New Orleans Saints, who are a team in desperate need of a little patchwork. For starters, New Orleans could use a blocking back, a few sizes larger than George Rogers, to help protect quarterback Richard Todd. However, while the Oilers were helping Todd wear out a hole in the seat of his new pants, the Saints defense had the frustrated Warren Moon inquiring about a jersey and a Canadian cut. Number 49, Frank Watlett's touchdown return helped prove that last year's defense is still a hot item. On the other hand, running back Hokie Gajan, number 46, is providing the Saints offense with a sleek new look in 84. While the Saints' 27-10 win boosted their record to 3-2, The sun has yet to shine in the Astrodome, where the 0-5 Oilers have been wallowing in the shadows of the very blue moon.
Talking about Richard Todd is like talking about a roller coaster. Richard Todd's up, and then Richard Todd's down. Either you're talking about his interceptions, or you're talking about his touchdown passes. So far in 1984, Richard Todd has thrown twice as many interceptions as TD passes. Last Sunday against the Oilers, Richard Todd had 1 interception, no touchdown passes, but in spite of this performance, the Saints beat the lowly Oilers.
Nick, how many times have you and I heard coaches harping about turnovers and how turnovers really kill you? They say, hey, look, if we're going to lose, let the other team earn it. Don't give it to them. Interceptions are going to kill you every time. In Richard Todd's case, it's baffling. You know, he has been in the league long enough that he should not be throwing that many interceptions. Not just in the league, but Richard Todd has played. He's been a starter for many years. And I think by now, Richard Todd should be able to read defenses better and not throw so many careless interceptions.
You know, potential is a wonderful thing, Len, but sooner or later you have to perform. And so far in Richard Todd's career, he has not been a consistent performer. If the New Orleans Saints late in the season find themselves in a playoff picture, don't be surprised if you see the star of our cover story, Ken Stabler, reemerge, this time as the savior of the Saints.
He was a sprint-out quarterback at Alabama, an All-American. He was drafted number 2 by the Oakland Raiders while entertaining thoughts about another career as a baseball pitcher for the New York Yankees. He made All-Pro and took the Raiders to the Super Bowl. And he was a player whose off-field activities, it seems, were as chronicled as his on-field activities. Yet, here he is, 16 years later, in New Orleans, Louisiana. A lot grayer, a lot svelter, and if you ask Ken Stabler, a lot wiser.
I haven't changed much as far as me personally. It seems like an awful long time ago. I mean, 14 or 15 years of doing what I've been doing, it seems like a long time, but it's gone by in a big hurry. I feel pretty good about where I am and how I got here from 1968 to now, and I have a real good taste in my mouth about my career and about what I've done and how I did it and the people that I've been involved with. So I really haven't changed much at all. The appearance may have changed a little bit, more gray hair, a little older, a little more beat up.
It was less than instant success for Ken in the early days. His job was not to throw the football, but to watch others do what he felt he could do better.
I was no exception. I wanted to play right away, and was upset and discontent with the fact that I wasn't playing, and voiced it and wanted to be traded to other places where I could play. And George Blanda was always there, and George would always say to stay right where you are and just keep developing, keep learning, keep studying, and when you get your opportunity to play, then you have to make the most of it, take advantage of the shot that you get.
When he did get his chance, his reputation began. Ask anyone in the NFL about Ken Stabler, the answer was unanimous. He's a winner. Some teams stand on the sidelines and wait for a way to lose. The Raiders, with Ken Stabler at the helm, were the opposite. Somehow, in some fashion, Stabler would find a way to beat you. Last-minute heroics became a way of life, and one thrill stood out above all the others.
It has to be the Super Bowl. I mean, it's the ultimate in our business. I mean, that's what we all play for, and that's what we're all trying to achieve. And I think that has to be the high point of my. When they start talking about quarterbacks, they're going to remember the ones that played in the Super Bowl. They're going to remember the ones that won championships. And when they start throwing those names around, I want my name to be mentioned. And that was always a driving force in me that I wanted to be the quarterback on a team that won the whole thing.
But from the ultimate thrill to a season of problems. When New Orleans went 8-8 last year, there was joy on Bourbon Street. But when the Raiders went 9-7 after the Super Bowl season, it was time to clean house. Stabler was suddenly a heavy. He avoided the press and became fodder.
We're the Super Bowl team, and everybody's expecting us to repeat and to do well, and we wound up going 9-7. I had 30 interceptions in that year. A lot of them my fault. All of them my fault. Interception's interception. Doesn't matter who it bounces off of or what happens. You take credit for them. That's just the way the game is. And so, as a result, I had some writers that wanted to ask me about interceptions, which would have entailed me being critical of my teammates, and I refused to do that. So I just take the whole thing, take the whole load.
John Madden was to quit as the coach of the Raiders after that season, and Al Davis and Ken Stabler were not to be found at the same party.
I consider him a friend, I suppose. I don't. We partied maybe with a little bitterness, little ill feelings, you know. But I really didn't like things that he said about me to the media or in public, and And as a result, after the bad year, that he traded me, which is his prerogative. But I admire the fact that he has maintained a winning tradition with that ball club for a long period of time.
Ken Stabler became an expendable commodity in Oakland and was shipped to Houston. It was like taking the same old show on the road for Kenny. He was at once a success and a winner, and it started a bond that continues today between player and coach.
I don't think there's anybody in the world can walk on a football field and get a football team to do the things. Any football team. You can put Kenny Stabler in the L.A. Rams huddle. If he went to their football team, you probably shouldn't. He walked out there, they'd be listening, and they'd be trying to do what he told them he wanted them to do.
The NFL is perhaps living proof of the only constant being change. Bum Phillips was out in Houston, and the new broom took the quarterback with it. It was fitting that when Phillips surfaced in New Orleans, Stabler was right behind. Ken Stabler, circa 1984, is a new souped-up model. At 190 pounds, he's 25 pounds lighter.
I still enjoy the whole scene of it, you know. I enjoy the camaraderie of the team and being around the guys and all the stuff that goes on in the locker room, the travel, being around the fans, the most important, the most fun of all is the actual playing, where I still enjoy throwing the ball and get a real nice feeling when you throw a nice tight spiral and somebody on your team catches it. I'm still having fun.
His new physique he attributes directly to his new bride. Rose Molly Stabler has replaced an occasional Jack Daniels with yogurt, wheat germ, and fruit salad. If you go running these days on the Redneck Riviera with Kenny, you best like sprouts.
They did the same thing.
You can lay brick with it. I changed that a year or so ago, and Molly's helped me a lot with that. I got off the red meats, salt, sugar, things like that, fried foods, a lot of fresh fruit, stuff like that. The soft drinks, no juices, no junk foods and stuff. And she's real strict about that. Makes me stick to it, and I don't mind it. I feel 100% better.
And so the guru has his own Ken Stabler. Richard Todd is the quarterback of record in New Orleans these days, and Ken Stabler is the voice in his ear. George Blanda would be proud.
Stabler would like nothing better than to help the Saints win a trip to Super Bowl 19. Our special guest is a man who knows Stabler very well because he was his tutor when Stabler arrived with the Raiders, the great kicker for the Oakland Raiders, George Blanda. George, thank you very much for joining Nick and I on the show. I know that you have a very busy schedule with a lot of speaking engagements, but I want to ask you about Stabler. What do you recall about Kenny when he first arrived with the Raiders?
Well, when Kenny came to the Raiders, he was a very slender, 6'2", quarterback out of the University of Alabama, number 2 draft choice, outstanding prospect, and Kenny was anxious to play immediately, but he had some personal problems, and he really didn't, he was gone for the first couple years. First year he didn't get to play hardly any, and the second year he retired, didn't retire, he took a year leave of absence from football, but when he came back, he started lifting his weights, a great thrower, he was a great touch, and he was a great leader, and he was a winner, and he had a great knowledge of football, and he still does, and I think that he's probably, outside of you, Lenny, the most accurate throwing quarterback I've ever seen.
George, Kenny Stabler, you watched him through his career. Does he still have the ability at this late age to come in off the bench and win?
Well, I think so. I think that the age is no deterrent to being able to go out there and do what you have to do. In fact, I think it's a great asset to have the experience. He's been in those tight situations before, and he's got all the ability left in the world. You never lose those physical skills. He might have lost a step, but if he's got a good offensive line and he knows how to read his defenses, he knows where to go as quickly as he should, and I look for him to, whenever called upon, to do an outstanding job.
George, you've been connected with professional football for a long time, 26 years as an active player, and I know that you follow it very closely today. How would you compare today's teams and players to the teams and players that you were associated with?
Well, Lanny, as you know, it's a different ball game. When we played 20 years ago, even 25 years ago, we had 33 players on a team. Now they have 49. It's more of a specialized game today. Certainly the coaching is better and all the technology is better. The players are bigger, stronger, faster, quicker, maybe by just a hair than we were 25 years ago. But the basic game hasn't changed much other than the players. It's still the people that block and the people that tackle, the people that catch, the people that could throw. The people that get emotional, and I think emotion wins more games than anything, the people that get emotional are still the winners. And I often cringe when I hear some of our people talk about the old-timers wouldn't and couldn't compare with the players today. I think we had talent back then, the people that could play in any era, but the fellas definitely are bigger, stronger, and there are more of them. There are a lot of great young college players and great pro football players.
George, stick around with us because I want to ask you some more questions. But right now, we're going to take a look at you and some of your contemporaries. The title of our record book is The Grand Old Men. It takes a look at the aging quarterbacks who found the fountain of youth in their waning years in the National Football League.
Their weathered faces reflect the years. Graybeard, battered quarterbacks, seemingly more ready for the rocking chair than great feats on a football field. In 1961, the bald eagle, Y.A. Tittle, was traded to the Giants and promptly led New York to 3 straight Eastern titles. At the advanced age of 36, Tittle was named the league's MVP, but the long season took its toll. Battered and bruised, Y.A. was not expected to play in the championship game against the Bears.
Y.A. told me as we got on the plane, he said, I don't care what you, the doctor says, or anybody, Allie, I've got to play Sunday. We're on our way, and I've got to play. I feel great.
Unfortunately for Allie Sherman, the shadows of time loomed large, and the Giants suffered their 3rd consecutive championship game defeat. Sadly, time ran out for the valiant Tittle, who was forced to retire without ever having won an NFL championship. Earl Morrall was the quintessence of the journeyman quarterback, a backup who wore many jerseys, played with many teams. For a dozen years, Morrall toiled without distinction. Then in 1968 emerged as a Colt. Don Shula signed him as insurance for injured John Unitas, and the much-traveled Morrall led Baltimore to the championship and was named NFL Player of the Year. Four years later, Morrall answered Shula's call again, this time in Miami. Again, Shula's foresight was rewarded when Bob Greasy broke an ankle early in the season.
Everybody was concerned because here's Greasy on the ground, our #1 quarterback, our season down the drain. But Earl got into the huddle and his first words were, just relax, we're going to get it done. And that's Earl's personality. He's very relaxed, he believes in himself, and somehow, some way he gets it done.
Morrall got it done so well, the Dolphins won a perfect 17-0, enjoying the greatest season in pro football history. When he retired in 1976, Earl Morrall had earned 2 Super Bowl rings and had played 21 years, second only to the grand old man, George Blanda. His career spanned 4 decades, 26 seasons in all, including the miracle season of '70, when number 16 single-handedly won 4 games through his passing or kicking skills. All this at the age of 43.
7 seconds, they set it where they wanted it, and here comes George Blanda onto the field. The 16-yard line, LaMonica was spotted. He waits, it's snapped, it's spotted, it's checked, it is, good! George Blanda has kicked the Oakland Raiders into a 3-point lead. And this man may tie the San Francisco Bay Area up into a knot from which it may never extricate itself again.
For 10 years as a 49er and Saint, Billy Kilmer knew only the discouragement of losing. The Saints were an expansion team, undoubtedly the worst team in the NFL. Still, Kilmer assumed the responsibility of defeat.
I'm sorry, Jim. Keep looking on 72. Gee, I just went blank, that's all. Gosh, darn it. I can't do nothing right.
In 1971, Kilmer was acquired by George Allen's Redskins as backup for Sonny Jurgensen. When Jerky went down with a leg injury, Washington's promising season seemed in jeopardy.
We have a lot of bumps and bruises, but all of this can help make us stronger. We got a guy like Billy Kilmer can come in and lead the team and help us, and that's what we want.
In his own inimitable style, number 17 came on like gangbusters and paced the way to the first Washington playoff berth in 26 years. Over the next half-dozen years, Billy the Kid led his team to the playoffs a total of 5 times. In 1972, they went all the way to the Super Bowl.
Hey, listen up! Give this game ball to a guy, I tell you, that did a hell of a job today. He broke right out of that stuff and came out and led us right to leadership. Give him the ball. This ball goes to Billy Kidman because he...
Billy Kilmer's career was proof positive that persistence and courage can produce the same results as great natural talent.
One thing these guys had in common is that they were fighters and winners. And they show that old adage that age is nothing but a state of mind. One guy who proved that more than anybody else is our special guest, George Blanda. George, at age 44, how did you perform so well?
Well, Nick, I think I really had a tremendous advantage because of experience, which is the greatest teacher that we know, and being able to recall the things that we did in the past when you got into those kind of situations. It made it an awful lot easier. Plus, I was with a great football team, the Oakland Raiders, who gave you great protection. We had great receivers, and a lot of the teams cooperated by going into the prevent defense in the last 2 minutes of the game. That made it an awful lot easier for an experienced quarterback to hit the seams in the zones and take the ball right down to where they had to go into man-to-man near the goal line, and you did what you had to do. But I think that you draw on your experience. You know where to go. You can read a defense expertly most of the time. You know where to go, where the open man will be, and that's the advantage of experience. That's why I think that a lot of times the young quarterbacks, most of them have trouble because they can't read the defense. They don't know where to go. They spot their receiver. They look at the receiver all the way, and if he's not open, they're in trouble.
George, I know you always had a great deal of confidence, but you remember the old saying that they say, well, it takes at least 5 years for a quarterback to make it in the NFL. Do you go along with this?
Well, I do, because I've seen him. Starting back in '49, seeing all the quarterbacks from that era right up to the present day. There's been one or two that's been the exception to the rule. I think Dan Marino is one now down in Miami who's performing admirably, but there are a lot of pro coaches didn't draft him in the first round. They didn't think he's going to be that good. So a lot of times you really don't know, and he is an exception to the rule. But fellows like Kenny Stabler, Terry Bradshaw is a good example. They put him in his very first year, and he got labeled as a dumb, stupid quarterback, and he lived with that label to today, and he never was that. He just made rookie mistakes, second-year mistakes, and when their team matured, he matured. In his 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th year, he became an outstanding quarterback. Most of the quarterbacks who were successful never really started out playing regularly immediately. They served their apprenticeship on the bench. You learn your demeanor around a football team. You learn all those little things that make you an outstanding leader, and I think that's more important than actually throwing the ball. There are a lot of great quarterbacks. There's a lot of quarterbacks with great arms never made it in the NFL because they didn't have that other asset.
George, just very quickly, who do you like to get to the Super Bowl and why?
Well, I like the Los Angeles Raiders, San Francisco 49ers for 2 reasons. The experience, the Raiders are still young. Jim Plunkett is, I still think, is an outstanding quarterback. They have great receiver, great defense. Defense will take you there. I like the 49ers. They've been there. I like Joe Montana. I like Bill Walsh. I like Tom Flores. I think that Miami will make a run at them, and I think that Dallas will make a run at them. Washington will make a run at them, but I think that Miami's got to go through the Raiders, and they always have trouble, I think, with the Raiders, and I think the 49ers should have almost got to the Super Bowl last year, and those are my predictions. We always thought there would be a Bay Area Super Bowl, and not to be now since the Raiders moved down to Los Angeles, but that's my picks.
George, thank you very much for taking time to be on the show with Nick and I.
Lenny, thank you, and thank you, Nick, and always nice to talk to you people. Look forward to seeing you.
There's an aging quarterback in Cincinnati who's beginning to feel his age, Kenny Anderson. On Monday night, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense knocked him out early. Pittsburgh's new steel curtain descended on Cincinnati quarterbacks 6 times Monday night. This one sending Ken Anderson to the bench for the rest of the game. His replacement, Turk Schonert, fared no better, throwing 4 interceptions, including a pair of long touchdown returns. Dwayne Woodruff took this gift, 42 yards for 6 points. One of the few bright moments for the Bengals came on this pass to rookie running back Stanford Jennings, which briefly brought the Ohioans back into the game. But David Woodley and the Pittsburgh offense displayed enough firepower to outscore their own defense, 3 touchdowns to 2. Rookie Rick Ehrenberg went 31 yards on this one. The final tally was turned in by Old Pro Donnie Shell, whose 52-yard theft was his 2nd of the game, the 38th of his career, most of any active player. The 38-17 win increased the Steelers' Central Division lead to 2 games, while the woeful Bengals fell deeper into the basement, winless in 5 tries. Pittsburgh is the class of the AFC Central.
Pittsburgh Steelers have to be happy to be in one of the worst divisions in the history of the NFL. All they have to do is show up on Sunday. Len, you take a game like Monday night, which was so boring. This has to hurt the fan interest, the TV ratings, and the overall credibility of the league.
I guess maybe John Madden, the ex-coach of the Raiders, could have a very good suggestion. He suggests they have an open line for the fans to call into the league office. So if the fan has a complaint, an idea, a suggestion that's going to help speed up play or improve the National Football League, that have an opportunity to do so. But I believe we here on HBO Sports Inside the NFL, we have already started that with our Super Poll to the Super Bowl, where we directly ask questions about the important issues of the day in the National Football League, and the response by the viewers really has been tremendous. It shows me that the fans, yes, they do want to get involved in what's happening in the NFL.
We're pace setters for the National Football League. You know, some games have gone from quick-paced, fast-moving events to penalty-ridden farces. The owners better huddle together pretty soon to work out some of these problems, or they're not going to have an audience to sell to. Right now, we're going to go to Las Vegas to be with Larry Merchant to get his insight on the picks of the week. Hopefully, the live ones.
The best alibi in football is the turnover, the fumble, the interception, the block punt that lost the game for you. Last week, I lost 2 games because neither team I picked against committed a single turnover. What are the odds on that? Some handicappers actually factor turnovers into the point spread, and rightly so. Let's take a look at how they figure in 2 games on the Caesars Palace board that interest me this week. The Bucs in Tampa Bay are 3-point favorites over the Vikings at home. I like the Bucs because their rugged defense should shut down the Vikings' standstill offense. What has me worried, however, is that the Bucs have 11 more turnovers than takeaways, while the Vikings have 3 more takeaways than turnovers, a difference of 14, or nearly 3 per game. The Raiders are favored by 5 over the Seahawks at home. The Raiders, much to my regret, have lost 3 straight to the spread. In spite of that, I think they'll handle the Seahawks, a team that usually beats teams it should beat and loses to teams it should lose to, a Chuck Knox trademark. But the Seahawks are plus 12 and the Raiders minus 4 in that often crucial turnover takeaway department. So, if I do lose these games on turnovers, no alibis. A word finally on veteran quarterbacks, one of whom, Jim Plunkett, I'm again putting my trust in. There are, incidentally, only 2 other veteran quarterbacks on the 16 winning NFL teams to date, the other 2 being Joe Theismann and Dan Fouts. Plunkett is your basic vagabond veteran quarterback who has found a home in his old age. His effectiveness is largely attributable to the powerful team he plays for. The veteran quarterback's job in that case, primarily, is not to lose games, to use his experience, his poise, not to squander his team's strengths. So, good luck this week, Jim Plunkett. You owe me 3. Len?
Larry, there's an old saying, I'd rather owe it to you than cheat you out of it. Those of you who follow the National Football League, I'm sure, are well aware that John Facenda, known as the voice of NFL films, passed away last week. John is gone, but his great talent will live on forever.
Well, it's now time to get the results of the Super Poll to the Super Bowl question. Should drug tests be mandatory in the National Football League? We had a great response. 81,000 people called in, and they said yes. 80% of them, 65,000, yes, players should be tested in the NFL. Down in Miami, where the Chuck Muncie situation became very, very prominent, 85% said yes, the players should be tested. One of the winners, one of the people calls that we intercepted, was from Rosalind Singleton from Oak Park, Illinois. She chose an L.A. Raider jersey. Surprised she didn't pick the Bears.
But she's now going to be in the sweepstakes poll to get an opportunity to win a trip to the Super Bowl for two. Listen, it's time now to congratulate our Offensive Player of the Week, and looks like he's going to be there again. Danny Marino of the Miami Dolphins, a tremendous job last week.
Defensive Player of the Week, someone I'm sure many of you never heard of, Ken McAllister. His first start at linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs. Grab this, 3 sacks and 1 interception. Terrific start, Ken.
We've got a program reminder for you. World Championship Boxing returns October the 19th when undisputed middleweight champion Marvelous Marvin Hagler defends his title for the 10th time against the #1 contender, Mustafa Hamsho. That's live right here on HBO. Time for the picks.
Yeah, time for the picks. They don't have the results of our picks last week up there. You must have monkeyed around with them again.
We'll get them next week. Atlanta's playing at Los Angeles. I don't know. I'm beginning to believe in the Los Angeles Rams and the way they're going with young Jeff Kemp. I'm going to go with the Rams.
Well, I think Atlanta's turn. I really do. I think Joe Riggs is going to put it together with Barkowski. I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons in an upset. Denver at Detroit. I keep saying Detroit has to win, but they haven't been able to do it. But 2 officials' calls near the end of that game hurt them badly. Denver is playing great defense. Still, the offense is not doing that well. I'm going to take Detroit as an upset.
Well, Denver is not playing at Mile High Stadium, where they've had a great deal of success. I'm going to go with Detroit. They've got to get a little lucky once in a while. Houston at Cincinnati. Oh, boy, somebody's got to win. 0-5.
The Ophers.
Yes.
These are the Ophers.
I'm going with Cincinnati at home.
Well, I'm going to go with Cincinnati also. They're playing at home, but I understand they're going to start Boomer Esiason, the rookie this week. Should be interesting. Miami at Pittsburgh. Well, I'm going with the Dolphins in Marino.
Geez, I got to agree with you once again. Miami. Minnesota at Tampa Bay. Well, we talked about Wilder. They're playing at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay.
I'm going to take Tampa Bay also. New England at Cleveland. Well, Cleveland, McDonald, the shark cage in the moat and all that stuff. I'm going to go with the Patriots.
I have to go with New England also. New Orleans at Chicago.
Good game.
Yes, it's going to be a good defensive teams, both sides. Chicago.
Well, I'm going to take New Orleans because Fuller's going to be starting. They reactivated him. McMahon shouldn't play. Avellini's on the road. I'm going with the Saints. New York Jets at Kansas City. It's going to be a tough ball game, too. I think Pat Ryan's playing great football, but the Kansas City defense, 11 sacks last week. I'm going with Kansas City.
Well, I'm going to have to go with the New York Jets. Philadelphia at Buffalo. Philadelphia.
Well, Buffalo, again, all kinds of quarterback problems. I'm going to go with Philadelphia. St. Louis at Dallas. I'm going to go with the Cowboys. They're playing at home.
Dallas also. San Diego, Green Bay. San Diego.
San Diego's offense. Seattle at the L.A. Raiders. I'm going with the Raider defense. They're going to rebound.
I'm going to have to go with the Raiders also. Washington, Indianapolis, Redskins.
Redskins, Indianapolis surging, but not enough. San Francisco at the New York Giants, a Monday night game. Should be a great football game. I'm going with the 49ers.
Jeez, I've agreed with you on almost everything. San Francisco. There you have it, folks. That's our show for this week. Thanks for joining us, and please join us again next week.